While cities like Paris, Berlin, and Amsterdam often dominate the discussion, Copenhagen frequently gets overlooked. Yet its history during World War II reveals a gripping narrative of resistance and retribution. In 1945, the dynamics of power shifted dramatically. Those who had once wielded authority and instilled fear were now scrambling for survival. The Gestapo, Germany's feared secret police, known for their brutal tactics against resistance fighters, found themselves in a perilous position, fleeing through streets engulfed in flames, uncertain of who might turn against them. Shell House, towering 6 stories above downtown Copenhagen, is the former headquarters of Shell Petroleum and had been repurposed into a stronghold for the Gestapo. The building housed extensive records detailing every resistance fighter and clandestine conversation that took place in the city's cafes. The top floors were dedicated to interrogation, while the basement contained horrific torture rooms, each element designed to suppress dissent under one ominous roof. Following the arrest of 1,966 Danish policemen on September 19, 1940, for an event that led to the establishment of a Danish auxiliary police force, known as the Hippo Corps, the situation grew increasingly dire. The German authorities had coerced the original police into submission, leading to the tragic deaths of 60 officers deported to Buchenwald. In their stead, Danish men in black uniforms began the hunt for their compatriots. By late 1944, the resistance movement in Copenhagen faced imminent collapse. Many of its leaders had been captured, networks had been compromised, and safe houses were no longer secure. In this climate of fear, 2 young men emerged as the last bulwarks against total defeat: Bent Forsku Hyvid, known as Flammen the Flame, and Jürgen Hagen Schmith, nicknamed Citronen the Lemon. Flammen, at just 23 years old, became Denmark's most wanted man, as he and Citronen formed a liquidation cell within the Holger Dansk resistance group, tasked with eliminating informers and collaborators. Flammen himself claimed the lives of 22 traitors in swift and decisive strike siege. Operation carried out with ruthless efficiency. With the relentless pressure mounting against them, Flammen and Citronen moved clandestinely throughout Copenhagen, staying in one location for mere hours before relocating. On September 19th, disguised as police officers, they encountered an SS patrol. While Citronen was shot and severely wounded, he managed to escape. Thanks to the quick actions of a resistance driver and a nurse named Ellen Christensen. However, soon after, the Gestapo discovered his safe house. The first team sent to apprehend Citronen met with failure, so did the second. Ultimately, a third group set fire to the structure in a desperate attempt to flush him out. As Citronen attempted to flee the inferno, he was gunned down. 50 soldiers were required to eliminate one man. Nurse Christensen narrowly managed to escape. Meanwhile, Flammen was soon cornered in a separate safe house in Jutland. Faced with capture and unarmed, he chose to take his own life by biting down on a cyanide capsule, dying almost instantaneously. His tombstone bears a poignant inscription: "The best must die." In 1951, both Flammen and Citronen were posthumously awarded the U.S. Medal of Freedom, testament to their legendary status that the Gestapo could never extinguish. Yet, with their absence, the menace of Shell House only intensified. As interrogations continued, the records grew, threatening to annihilate the remnants of resistance. By December 1944, desperate pleas reached London, urging an airstrike to obliterate the building before it could destroy the movement. Initially, the RAF hesitated. The risks seemed insurmountable. The target was too central, the civilian presence too significant. However, by March 1945, they approved Operation Carthage. On March 21st, 21 Mosquito bombers, escorted by 28 Mustang fighters, launched from England with the critical objective of destroying Shell House and liberating the prisoners on the upper floors. As the aircraft approached Copenhagen just after 11 a.m., the first wave of bombers flew low. But chaos ensued when one Mosquito struck a lamppost and crashed near Jeanne d'Arc School, igniting a conflagration. Unfortunately, subsequent waves misidentified this smoke as a signal to drop their payloads on the school itself, resulting in a tragic barrage. The resulting devastation claimed the lives of 87 children, along with 10 nuns and teachers. This incident marked one of the darkest chapters in Danish history. Nonetheless, Shell House was reduced to smoldering ruins. Its western wing collapsed, and the key files that held the potential to crush the resistance were consumed by flames. 18 prisoners managed to escape, while 55 German soldiers and 47 members of the Danish Gestapo lost their lives in the raid. However, the strike came at a hefty cost, with 9 RAF airmen becoming casualties. The impact on the Gestapo was swift. With its documentation destroyed and its leadership decimated, the occupation's iron grip began to weaken. But the resistance did not pause for liberation. It escalated. Members of the Hippo Corps were ruthlessly hunted down, and collaborators were marked for retribution. By spring 1945, Copenhagen became a landscape fraught with volatility, caught between a lingering fear and a burgeoning fury. The occupation had devolved into brutality following August 1943. When the Danish government opted to resign rather than authorize death warrants for those deemed saboteurs, the Germans imposed martial law, provoking a significant upsurge in resistance activities, including acts of sabotage, targeting trains, factories, and shipyards. In retaliation, the Gestapo responded with increased arrests, deportations, and executions. By 1945, the underground resistance had forged an alternative governance structure, the Danish Freedom Council. This entity unified disparate resistance groups and established lines of communication with London, keeping meticulous records of informers, collaborators, and Gestapo personnel. As Germany's demise loomed in April 1945, the citizens of Denmark understood that liberation was imminent, and the resistance prepared to assert control. Collaborators braced for escape from the inevitable reckoning. On the night of May 4, 1945, a British radio announcement confirmed German forces in Denmark had surrendered. Liberation would officially commence the following morning at 8 a.m. instantaneously. The blackout was lifted. Curtains were torn down, and candles flickered to life in every window, marking the return of light after 5 years of darkness. The populace erupted in song, tears, and dance, reveling in newfound freedom. Yet not all shared in the jubilation. Amidst the excitement, gunfire broke out in the streets. Acts of retribution commenced before dawn. Women accused of consorting with German soldiers had their heads shaved and swastikas emblazoned on their skin. Informers were dragged from their homes, some shot, others simply vanished from sight. In the chaotic first days of liberation, authorities rounded up approximately 40,000 individuals, about 1 in every 100 Danes. In the aftermath, 13,500 were officially charged with collaboration. The Hippo Corps members were especially targeted. Some were lynched before formal arrests could be made, while others found protection from officials eager to restore a semblance of law and order. Denmark teetered on a precipice of justice and chaos. The Freedom Council sought to impose order. However, it wielded only moral authority, lacking any legal legitimacy. The government that had resigned in 1943 returned gradually to its position. On May 5th, British troops entered Copenhagen, welcomed by a city in celebration. Yet, the island of Bornholm continued to resist, enduring Soviet bombardments on May 7th and 8th, leading to an 11-month occupation. As liberation spread across the country, lists of collaborators began to surface. Cars arrived under the cover of night. Doors were forced open. Some arrests were executed with military precision, while others descended into violent chaos. The once clear distinctions between justice and vengeance dissolved in a tide of bloodshed. Between 1947 and 1950, over 10,000 Danes would stand trial for collaboration. With 100 receiving death sentence, 78 were confirmed by the Supreme Court. A total of 42 executions were carried out, all Danes, including 2 women, within a shed in Christianshavn. Through its concrete floor, a drain served its grim purpose. One volley, one body, one case closed. Today, that shed's foundation lies unmarked, silently beneath the feet of tourists in Christiania. Hidden lies the site where Denmark's traitors met their end. In the aftermath of the war, the camps that had once held resistance fighters were repurposed to imprison collaborators. Forest Camp grew into Denmark's largest detention center. By 1949, these sentences had mostly expired, and the camp transitioned into army barracks. The resistance had become the state's enforcer. Notable leaders like Gunnar Dyerberg, who once commanded Holgerdansk, shifted to careers in public administration and literature, haunted by the moral compromises demanded for survival. The legacies of Flammen and Citronen persevered in the national consciousness. Their story was immortalized in the 2008 Danish film Flammen and Citronen, featuring Lindhardt and Mads Mikkelsen, serving as a poignant reminder that their struggle was bitter, fleeting, and uncertain in terms of victory. While they met their end in October 1944, before the flames consumed Shell House, before liberation dawned, before Denmark was free, the fall of the Gestapo was a gradual unraveling rather than a sudden defeat. The RAF bombing obliterated its archives. Subsequent resistance actions dismantled its remnants. Collaborators were pursued, and many faced execution. Denmark suffered an estimated 3,000 civilian casualties during the occupation. However, 1,531 Danes were killed in the tumultuous first 5 months of 1945 alone, more than the total lost in the previous 4 years combined. Liberation failed to conclude the violence, merely shifted the weapons to different hands. Of the 1,960 Danish police officers sent to Buchenwald, 131 did not survive. In stark contrast, the narrative of Denmark's Jews remains distinct. In October 1943, 7,200 Jewish individuals fled to Sweden, aided by local fishermen and compassionate citizens. After liberation, the vast majority returned to discover their homes untouched, with neighbors safeguarding their possessions. Only around 120 perished, affording Denmark the highest survival rate for Jews in any occupied nation. At the Museum of Danish Resistance in Copenhagen, visitors can view models used by RAF pilots, photographs depicting Shell House ablaze, and a fragment of the concrete floor where executions took place. The remnants of the drain still exist, yet no plaque commemorates the site only. A haunting silence remains. It suggests a complex relationship with the past, acknowledging the weight of history without glorifying it. Even today, Denmark understands that justified executions and violent retribution leave scars that time cannot heal. On the night of May 4, 1945, the city of Copenhagen lingered in a state of twilight, caught between occupation and newfound freedom, with a future uncharted. Some participants lit candles in celebration, others turned to meticulous lists of informers and collaborators, certain debts demanding repayment. Liberation brought light to many, but darkness to others. For some, freedom translated to vengeance. For others, it signified the obliteration of their existence. As late as September 1945, workers excavated the ruins of Shell House, unearthing bodies from its remnants. Though the physical embodiment of the Gestapo was annihilated in mere moments, the shadows of its legacy would linger for years to come. Today, Copenhagen embodies tranquility and elegance, with the Shell House now reconstructed. Collaborators have either perished or faded into obscurity, and the heroism of the resistance has aged into memory. Nonetheless, the echoes of this tumultuous past persist in archival records, museums, and unassuming foundations that refuse to be forgotten. The history of Copenhagen in 1945 imparts an enduring lesson that resonates through the ages. While occupation may cease, the consequences endure. Liberation provokes both celebration and reckoning, and collaboration inevitably exacts a heavy toll, always paid in blood. The saga of the Gestapo in Copenhagen concluded in rubble and silence, a stark testament to the nature of freedom, which upon its arrival is rarely untainted. Some transgressions are not measured by the passage of time, but by the lives they irrevocably alter. Ultimately, some finalities, regardless of how justified, will always bear the weight of blood. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to support our work and never miss an upload. Like this video, drop a comment, and share it with others to show your support and help us grow this historical community.